I'm Trevor with iViz Shooting Systems. Let's install a sight set on Ruger 1022. We've been making 1022 sights for over 20 years now, I believe. This is our latest version. We made a few updates, you'd say, over the last set. These have been out for probably about 8 years or so, this version. So let's go ahead and install it. Here's the 1022 front sight. We've updated this to what we call our new Lightwave design. Still has interchangeable fibers. You can interchange, reuse the inserts. They come in red, green, and white, and those are included with the package. And then the 1022 rear sight, which is fiber optic as well. These are both a dovetail sight. This one is elevation adjustable. This also has interchangeable fibers, and this is one of the features of this updated design. Is our previous 1022 sight set, the rear sight fiber was not interchangeable. So these comes with red and green. They're very easy to change, although the parts are very small. So you have your 2 elevator screws here on the rear sight. You remove those screws, the elevation plate comes off, and as you can see here on the back of the sight, the fiber is held captive between the sight blade and the elevator blade. So when you remove that blade, the light pipe simply fits right onto that plate. So you just remove that plate, change the color, put it back on, reinstall the screws. Let's go ahead and install this in this 1022. So these are dovetail sights, both front and rear. There's a couple differences on a 1022 that you don't normally encounter on most guns. The main one is that the rear sight, this dovetail is actually tapered. So it's tapered larger on the right side, going to smaller on the left side. So we're always going to install this sight from right to left. Our sight base may be somewhat difficult to see, but if you look at it, it is also tapered, so it's smaller on this end than it is on this end. So when we insert it, it's always going to be from right to left. It slides in nearly all the way because it's on a taper. So if you try to install it from the other direction, it won't even start in the dovetail. Now to install these, the front sight's no problem. I can clamp up here on the barrel and get the barrel clamped in the vise where I can drive that front dovetail in. The rear sight is where it becomes a little bit of an issue. Now sometimes you are able to drive these out and reinstall them with the gun still in the stock. I prefer to remove the firearm from the stock so that I can clamp on the barrel. Typically on dovetails, it's not uncommon to have fitting on the dovetail. Since this particular rear sight on the Ruger 1022 is tapered, most likely you will not have to do any fitting. Let's go ahead and see. The sight fits in there. And this is not uncommon and shouldn't be alarmed. Since it is on a taper, those tapers are going to mate together and they're only going to lock up right at the last point of the taper. And there we go. It can be somewhat difficult to center sights on a round barrel like this. You can use calipers. You can go off the flat sides of the action here. I have a dial indicator. I can go ahead and use that. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it there for the moment. Just looking at it, it appears that I'm nearly centered. Now we're going to move on to installing the front sight. So let's go ahead and clamp the barrel up in our vise. Here we have our front sight. And the front sight may appear almost the same on both ends of the sight, but there is a specific end that you want to sight with. So we have a slight rounding on this side, but the real feature is that when you look at this side of this end of the sight, it has a very small dot and it's smooth on that end. When you turn around to the other end, it has a larger dot, that's your viewing end, and it has some serrations on that end. That's the end we want to face towards the shooter. So like all dovetail sights, I like to start with just a check fit and see if we can drive them into place without any fitting. So that sight starts in the dovetail. Let's go ahead and see if we can drift it in place. All right, I'm drifting it in place. The sight's moving without any excess force, so I'm going to keep going. Now these particular sights, we make our sight essentially the same width as the ramp or the dovetail mount that's machined into the barrel. So centering it really is just getting the sight flush with both sides of the barrel band that it's dovetailed into. All right, that sight feels very flush with both sides of the barrel band. Looks like we got a complete install. Let's go ahead and put the action back in the stock, take it out to the range and sight it in.